The legislative process. The legislative process, or the how a bill becomes a law process, was not intended to be easy. The framers wanted to make sure that laws were thoroughly considered, debated, reviewed. Again, this reflects the framers' concern of a faction being able to get pointless or arbitrary or self-interested laws quickly passed through the legislative branch. So this is a lot of steps. There's a lot of things that slow down the process, and most likely a bill is going to die before it gets passed. So part one of the legislative process is going to be what is covered in this video. Now, if the writing is in red, it only applies to the House of Representatives. If the writing is blue, it only applies to the Senate. Okay, first step of the how a bill becomes law process is that a bill is introduced. Now before, it's just not as simple as a bill being introduced. Okay, it can only be introduced by a member of Congress. So that would be what this little image shows you. Okay, proposing a bill, only a member of Congress can actually introduce a bill on the floor or place a bill into the hopper, which is the mahogany box that's in front of the House of Representatives. Okay, so if you are a voter, if you are the president, if you are an interest group and you want there to be a piece of legislation about your issue or your concern, you have to find a member of Congress to sponsor that piece of legislation for you. Bills, the ideas of bills are to address a problem and concern from interest groups, constituents, or the president. If it is a bill dealing with taxing or spending, it must be initiated by the House of Representatives. Okay, a bill dealing with spending or taxing cannot be introduced in the Senate. It has to start in the House, then it goes to the Senate, but it cannot be reversed in order. The Speaker uses what's called referral power, and I mentioned that before when we went over congressional leadership. Referral power is the power to assign a bill to a committee. If the Speaker wants to kill a piece of legislation because they don't want to see it passed, they can place that bill in a committee that they know will not work on that piece of legislation. The Senate. In the Senate, a bill is introduced by a senator on the floor, and then it is the responsibility of the majority leader to put it on the calendar or not. Okay. At that point, once a bill has been introduced and it has been put on the calendar, the second step is committee action. Committee action, what happens at this step is the bill is going to get really worked on. It is going to get marked up, and it's going to become more lengthy, and it's going to go from an idea or, a proposed solution to a detailed bill that's going to have who is eligible, who does it apply to, how are we going to pay for it, what would be punishments if you violate this law, what part of the federal government bureaucracy is going to be responsible for enforcing it, so on and so forth. So committee action, what happens though, it shows up at the committee and then the committee pushes it to an even further specialized subcommittee. And that subcommittee is going to do more research. And part of what the subcommittee does also is hold hearings. This hearings is when the subcommittee has experts come in and testify and give information about the legislation. So that gives the subcommittee even more facts and more data to write a better bill in the long run. Once the subcommittees are done, the bill returns to a committee. And the committee has two options. The committee chair can say, all right, we like the way this bill looks. We're going to report on the bill favorably, and it's going to move on. But most likely, this is where bills stall out or die. If a bill is stalled out or dead in committee, the House of Representatives only, because it's in red, right? The House of Representatives only has a tool called discharge petition. So I want you to think of it as a petition circulating amongst the members of the House of Representatives, and if the majority of the members sign this petition, then it kicks the bill out of committee and puts it to the floor. So if a committee refuses to report on a bill, or a committee chair refuses to work on a bill, individual members can get it to the floor through a discharge petition. Third, this whole step is exclusive to the House of Representatives. This step does not exist in the Senate. So this whole slide is red, okay? House of Representatives only has a Rules Committee. Now, I want you to think of it like this. There's a lot of people in the House of Representatives, 435. The more people you have, the more guidelines you need to manage that group of people. Plus, the House of Representatives is not as experienced as the Senate. And because the House of Representatives doesn't have that kind of expertise and they're not as enlightened statesmen as the senators, they have to have more guidelines to how do they conduct their business, right? That's the idea behind having a Rules Committee. There are two rules that the Rules Committee sets. They determine if the bill may be debated on the floor or not. If the bill is debated, then that means people from all sides are going to have a limited amount of time to be able to have their say on a piece of legislation. If the debate is not, or if the debate is set to no, then nobody can discuss the bill. They can read it, but then the next step is they just have to vote on it. Why wouldn't you want a bill to be debated? Well, if you don't have time to go through debate, that's a good option. So if you're trying to hurry up and pass a budget before the government shuts down, you're not going to set time for debate on a bill. A bill can be closed or open for amendments and changes. So if a bill is closed, it can't have amendments. If a bill is open, then you can have amendments. But the thing is, in the House of Representatives, all amendments must have germaneness. Okay? All amendments that you add to a bill have to relate to the original policy. So if you have a piece of legislation about education in the House and you want to add an amendment to it, that amendment has to deal with education. You can't add a gun control amendment to it. You can't even add a gun control amendment that deals with gun control in schools. Okay, the actual original intention and purpose of needs to match, of the amendment needs to match the original text of the policy or the bill being proposed. All right, so that's steps 1 through 3. And then in part 2, you'll have steps 4 through 7. All right, thank you.